Carlos Alcaraz is back. He wins the 2025 Monte Carlo Masters tournament, and it's his first Masters 1000 tournament since Indian Wells last year. So over a year now since he won a Masters tournament, but he's still only 21 years of age, and he's already won 6 of these Masters 1000 tournaments to add to and including now 18 ATP titles, which is incredible at only 21 years of age. Look, this was a really good week for Carlos. I thought he was really solid throughout. He definitely didn't play, in my opinion, his best tennis, but he played well enough to get through the competition. He didn't have to face some of the big names that maybe we thought he would have to, in a Novak Djokovic, maybe an Alexander Zverev, for example. But he did face some really good players who are in form in Arthur Feast, Dominic Fokina, and also Lorenzo Musetti in the finals. So I was impressed with the way that he handled the moment, and people forget that actually he'd never won a Monte Carlo Masters match before this year, and he lost to Sebastian Korda a couple of years back, and then he's missed it because of injury in the past as well. So it's just been a tournament that he hasn't had the best of luck at, in all honesty. So great to see him get his first tournament in Monaco, and he'll be going into Barcelona, and then Madrid is the favourite, as those are 2 tournaments that he's really comfortable in. And it seems that the red dirt, the clay, has reignited some of the form that we've been missing from him, I think, for quite some time this year. So great to see him back to at least near his best. And normally, in the last couple of years, we've been accustomed to seeing him maybe not play his best until Indian Wells, but then during Indian Wells is when he really springs into life. And of course, he's won it the last few years. But this year it wasn't to be. But it seems that there's been a bit of delay in that surge, but it's come here in Monaco, which is good to see. And good to see him playing with a smile on his face, which is the biggest thing. He is one of the best entertainers in the sport. Before we get into it any further, remember to hit that like button, please, if you don't mind. Do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Also, do click that notification bar if you are listening on YouTube, and make sure notifications are enabled. If you are listening on a podcast platform, if there are any notifications that you can enable, please do. And hopefully you're enjoying the content. Okay, so let's get into the match in terms of what transpired, what was interesting strategically, and then I just want to touch a little bit upon Musetti as well, just standalone, because this was his first ever final. His first ever final, it was his first ever Grand Slam, but his first ever Masters 1000 semi-final as well. I thought he played really well against De Minaur, and someone who, in the Australian, that was playing some fantastic tennis. Alex had just double-bageled Dimitrov. He was clearly super confident, beat Musetti in the first set at 6-1, and then the next 2 games, or next 2 sets even, Musetti had to really dig deep. And that final set tiebreaker I thought was really impressive, given that he surrendered a break in the 3rd set. He was up a break serving for the match. So to then bounce back, I think mentally shows a really positive progression in his game as a whole. I think in the past we've seen him capitulate at times when things get tough, and he is, again, only 22 years old. So I think we have to be very careful about, or 22, 23, we have to be very careful about being too harsh, because I don't think that's fair. He's an extremely talented player, and on the clay courts especially, I think, are this swing, this surface, he should be doing what he did here in Monaco. I would say he is a real contender. If he's able to sort himself out physically and just improve his conditioning before Roland Garros, he should be in the top 5 contenders potentially, I would say. He's that good on clay, and he's very good on grass as well, by the way. He did really well last year on grass, but it just seems like the surfaces, grass, clay, when the elements are really at play, he just has the variety and the IQ to be able to really effectively battle those conditions and utilize them to the best of his ability. So let's break it down then in terms of the match. So, look, the first set was an interesting one because actually Musetti didn't get off to the best start. He got broken in the first game, and Alcaraz played a couple of good points. Musetti was maybe a little bit tight. But what was interesting to me was that both players were coming to the net quite a bit, especially Alcaraz. And Musetti actually opened up an ad break point in the next game, in the following game, with some big forehands, really ripping that forehand from the baseline. High topspin, heavy balls for Alcaraz to deal with deep into court. And Carlos Alcaraz saves the first break point with a very brave first serve down the tee, which he comes to serve and volley, and he puts the volley away at the first time of asking, which is really impressive to me. I thought that was very courageous, and just like Carlos. But Musetti was having a lot of success at early doors in this set, and it was a theme throughout the whole of the first set in that Alcaraz ad corner. So in the ad court exchanges, he was, in my opinion, dominating those rallies. And when I say dominating, it doesn't mean that he was winning 95% of those points. It means he was winning more than 50-60% of those points. And he was doing so in a very intelligent way, and we'll touch upon that more in a second. What he did do, though, Musetti, was break back eventually in that game. And it was a long game, over 7 minutes, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He breaks back. Alcaraz plays a drop shot, which actually was a very good drop shot. A lot of players might not have got to it, or if they did, it might not have been a great pickup. But Musetti does pretty well with the pickup and picks it up cross court with the backhand. And then we have the lob from Alcaraz, which is a backhand lob, which is his go-to, is one of his go-to patterns, drop shot lob. Musetti straight away anticipates it, is already moving backwards, and he gets a pretty difficult backhand smash, which he absolutely nails. It's really clean. And then Alcaraz, we're back into the rally. Alcaraz tries to then go big with the into-out forehand. He goes long with it. So 1-1. So Musetti breaks, probably because Alcaraz wasn't expecting that lob to come back the way it did, or maybe even come back at all. So that was really impressive to me from Musetti. And his movement in the first set, I thought, was really good. And that's, I think, why that third set especially was a big shame. And towards the back end of the second set, he was having those physical issues, and it really hampered his game, because a lot of his game is on his movement and being able to craft points with his legs and his skills. But to utilize your skills, you need to have your legs to actually get into the right positions, and he wasn't able to do that towards the back end of that match, or this match even. But when it came to the ad court exchanges, he was doing really well in a couple of ways. So first of all, I think generally, and this isn't just to do with the ad court exchanges, he was hitting with a lot of depth and precision close to the lines, especially the tram lines. I thought the width was really good on a lot of his ground strokes. And he was causing trouble for Alcaraz when he was hitting with heavy spin. It's just the heavier balls. Maybe Alcaraz just wasn't used to it. If we look at who he's played this week in Fokina, Fils, Altmaier, and I mean, the only one you could say is maybe close to that is after Fils. He hits a very heavy ball too. And Alcaraz struggled with him. He did in that match, and he managed to get over the line, and he problem solved. But it wasn't an easy match for Alcaraz. So that, to me, I think probably is in line with my thoughts on why Alcaraz is struggling, at least earlier on anyway. In the ad court specifically, he was alternating between hitting with really high topspin into out forehands into the ad corner and the occasional drive backhand as well, and then mixing it up with knifing deep slices into that corner. And he was inducing errors from Alcaraz. And the thing is, what you have to understand is that the slice, right, you might think, well, Faizan, the slice is not that potent on clay. And you would be right in the fact that it's definitely not as potent on clay as it is, say, on grass, even on hard court. But what it does on clay is it provides a really big contrast to the topspin ground strokes, because on clay, On clay, you get more bang for your buck. You get more out of the surface, more purchase off the surface when you hit really high topspin. And that's what Musetti was doing. And when you do that, it stops more, it kicks off the surface, and it pushes you back behind the baseline more. So your movement-wise, you're having to hit the ball a lot further back than you would do if you're playing on hard court or on grass. If someone hit the same ball, same spin, same trajectory, same speed, on the same part of the court, you would see the arcs all similar, but off the surface. Off the surface is where it differs, and that's when that ball would go up and further on the clay courts. And for Alcaraz, obviously he's used to that, but what Musetti was doing on the slice is, because the slice sits up a little bit more on a clay court, but it still keeps low, and he was really knifing it, and it keeps low and re-speeds up, and once it kind of clips the clay court, it doesn't really get off the surface. So it was forcing Alcaraz to, not laterally, but more in terms of kind of getting up and down. It was an issue for him, I think. He was having to kind of go back to hit a backhand, then come forward and hit a backhand, or go back and hit into that forehand, then go forward and hit it. And it was happening quite often. And that disruption in rhythm, I think for Alcaraz, was definitely an issue. And Musetti executed that game plan to a T, I thought, really effectively. And it wasn't something that he completely overutilized. I think he was very clever in how much he used it. He didn't become predictable, especially in that first set, that is. So then Musetti breaks for 3-1, and there's a couple of forehand errors from Carlos Alcaraz, missing some risky forehands, tried to go line a couple of times when he shouldn't have. And the commentator at the time made a really good point, and it's true, and this applies to most players, but I think for Alcaraz, it does apply to him, but his thinking isn't always this. When you're struggling to find rhythm and hit those kind of riskier shots that you normally would make, would you not play with a bit of extra margin to find that rhythm again? Alcaraz doesn't normally do that. A lot of the times, he will just start hitting the ball harder, or hit with more variety, or just say, no, I need to be executing it better. Sometimes that works, but I think on clay especially, you need to be patient, and he has the game to frustrate people by playing his B level. And he should be beating most of the players on tour with his B level on clay. I think we saw that in Monte Carlo, because I don't think he was playing his top level. So that to me was a very interesting remark from the commentator, that you think, yeah, that's logical, right? It's common sense. But actually, for Alcaraz, I don't think it always necessarily applies in his thinking. So, what was also interesting is that Alcaraz was actually standing 1 meter further back in that first set versus Musetti. This is in regards to his return position in comparison to everyone else he played in Monte Carlo this week. So he was almost right at the back, touching the billboards. That's how far back he was. And that to me is just crazy. Like, so far back. I mean, there's just no need to be that far back against Musetti. I know he hits with a lot of spin off the kick serve, but he's not a 6'5", 6'6" Mpessi Pericard who's able to hit kick serves, that are going to go over your head, or an Apelka or a Shelton. So that to me was a bit strange. I almost felt like Alcaraz wanted loads of time to kind of wind up the return and hit. And I get that, and at times I can get on board with it. But I feel like with Musetti, especially given that his serve, at times he can ramp it up, but I don't think it's a huge serve. Why would you not try, especially in the first couple of games when he was struggling, to stand a bit further forward? If you need to take it shoulder height, take it shoulder height. He has a pretty good backhand lob return, Alcaraz, and I feel like it's because he didn't really want to hit that shot. He wanted to try and get on the front foot straight away, And it meant that he was making errors or he wasn't really getting the depth he wanted because the rhythm wasn't there. So that was, I think, the issue. So 4-2, Musetti's out 4-2 in the first set, and then Alcaraz wins the first return point. And this is a long, epic point, which Musetti comes towards the net, doesn't do enough with the volley, then he gets lobbed, and then he carries on from the back of the court, and eventually Alcaraz wins it. And you think, okay, this could be the turning point, right? When you have a long point like that, you think this could be the turning point. But it wasn't. Musetti didn't let Alcaraz gain momentum after that. He held to 15. That was really impressive to me in terms of the mental fortitude. Because Alcaraz, as soon as he won that point, he did the classic, I can't hear you, or come on, I want to hear you, to the crowd. Clearly trying to G himself up in the crowd. But Musetti did well. He held to 15, so 5-2. And there's a comfortable hold at 5-3 for Alcaraz to go 5-3 down. And the Musetti, to me, I thought, was coming to the net effectively during that first set. And interestingly, the stats don't show him coming to the net that often in set one. It was twice, but the 2 times he came to the net, he won it, apparently. I thought he came to the net more than that, but maybe next time I'll count how many times I had him coming to the net, because I thought he came to the net more than 4 times during the match, which is what the stats say. Alcaraz came to the net 17 times in the match, 13 points won there, which I think, was really impressive, and it definitely made a difference in the second set onwards. And he had his moments in the first set where he was volleying really well, I thought, as well. But the willingness, one thing I want to say is that the willingness for Musetti and Alcaraz to come to the net, especially Alcaraz, I guess, given the stats, although, again, I don't think the stats are right for Musetti. The willingness to come to the net, the variety shown from both players, it was a real pleasure to watch the first 2 sets, especially the first set, because I think you're really treated to some, I think, quite high-level clay court tennis. Now, was it absolutely epic, elite clay court tennis? Not necessarily, no, but it was I thought, a very high level still. And I thought it really showcased what clay court tennis is all about. It's all about variety. It's not just about grinding from the back of the court. It's about being able to outthink your opponent, outmaneuver your opponent, using different ways to win points. And that's exactly what both these guys were doing. And that, to me, was a real positive out of this final. I think it was a really good advert for clay court tennis the first couple of sets. So, 5-3, as I said. And then, for me, Musetti, to win this set, I mean, is one of the shots of the match. Alcaraz hits an absolute rocket of a forehand into in, and Musetti just a wand of a forehand slice drop shot to win the set. I mean, it was incredible. Behind the baseline, just absolutely knifed the drop shot, just makes its way over the net, spins sideways off the court. It was a ridiculous shot. Unbelievable touch and feel from him, and what a way to win the first set. After the first set, 7 winners for Musetti, 6 unforced errors, 11 winners for Alcaraz, 40 unforced errors. I mean, those types of numbers are not surprising. You tend to see a lower ratio of winners to unforced errors on clay because there's a lot more forced errors on clay because it's a slower surface, because the winner potential is not quite as high. Second set, look, I mean, the second and third sets is not too much to talk about. The third set I'm going to very briefly touch upon. The second set, there were some interesting points to make, especially at the start of it, because towards the second half of the second set and towards the back end, Musetti started physically struggling. But Alcaraz raised his level that I don't think it would have made a difference. I think the scoreline in the third set, who knows what happens there. Maybe Musetti comes back into a more competitive third set, but the second set result wouldn't have changed, I think, no matter what Musetti was feeling, because I think he was already 5-love down when he started feeling physically hampered anyway, from what I could see. So Alcaraz breaks for 2-love, and he races into a 5-love lead. Now, a couple of things that I noticed during this complete shift in momentum was that Alcaraz adjusted his return position. He wasn't as far back as he was in the first set. He was hitting better quality off the return as well. The return was just so much better in quality, deep and aggressive at times, especially off the forehand wing. The drop shot was working really well as well. And Musetti's level definitely wasn't as good as the first, and I think what happened is Alcaraz came out the blocks really quickly. Musetti wasn't able to adjust, and by the time he maybe did think he could adjust, he then got kind of the injury flared up. So it was too late. It's too late, sorry. And in the first set, what I was impressed with in terms of Musetti was his ability to really stick with Alcaraz forehand. Sorry, excuse me. I thought forehand to forehand, he was really impressive. And actually, he managed to, in my opinion, boss a lot of those rallies, force Alcaraz into awkward positions, rush him on the forehand side. However, Alcaraz started to find rhythm in the second set at the start straight away, especially on the forehand wing, and that meant it was going to be a tough ask for Musetti in the second set, because the forehand cross from Alcaraz was doing some serious damage. I mean, look, he was already 3-love up in 13 minutes. And then, yeah, I mean, look, to open up break point, there's a forehand error from Musetti, and Carlos was just moving him around, making it look easy, if I'm being honest. And then he just absolutely just races to the end of the second set, 6-1, which I thought was really impressive, given how he bounced back from the first set. Third set, as I said, Musetti was struggling at the start of the third set, back in the second set. The conditions started to get windier as well. I was thinking maybe actually that might suit Musetti, but physically he just wasn't there. And I think one of the points to make as well is that at the start of the third set, I think this was before Alcaraz broke, in the start of the third set, so we'd only played the first two sets, let's say, Musetti had converted only 2 out of 9 break points, and Alcaraz had converted 3 out of 3. This has been a story throughout the whole week from Alcaraz, and this is what makes the great players great. He has been clinical for the most part throughout this whole tournament, and that's why he is champion. Simple as that. Musetti had some chances in that second set, even though he maybe wasn't playing as good as he was in the first set, but he just wasn't able to be clinical and take those opportunities. Alcaraz was able to, and that to me I think was really impressive to me. Look, I mean, the third set, Musetti is not even serving at 80%, maybe 70%. You can tell he's not putting a lot behind his serve. He's not running for any balls. The forehand, he's kind of just trying to hit aggressively off it, trying to play drop shots really early in points, and just trying to shorten the points when he can. Alcaraz clipped a net cord and dropped over. Musetti just didn't. He started moving, stopped himself because he didn't want to make it worse, maybe his injury. So fingers crossed his injury isn't too bad. He's able to play Madrid and Rome and ultimately Roland Garros, because I think this is a really good week from him. He needs to try and capitalise on it now. Really run with it. Run with the momentum. Because look, Sinner's coming back in Rome. Right, he's had some time off. Djokovic is, he lost early to Bio on clay. He could be susceptible. It's a lot more physical. Zverev is not playing well at the moment. Apart from now, Alcaraz, who just won on clay. Ruud lost early as well, and you maybe weren't expecting him to lose to Popperin, for example. That was a big surprise. So no one's really playing well, out of the top guys anyway, on clay right now. So Musetti should be looking at that thinking like, look, there's a massive gap. There's a massive opportunity for the rest of this clay court swing to make some moves. There's no reason why he shouldn't be thinking of making a deep run at Roland Garros, or even potentially even taking a title in Madrid or Rome. There are opportunities. Of course, the draw might have to be a bit favourable to him as well, but look, I mean, the opportunities are there, especially if the draw opens up. So, some real positives to take for the Italian. For Alcaraz, I think for him and for his fans, and of which I am one, but I'm a fan of all players, there's a lot to be positive about I think the biggest thing is that he is back to winning ways. That's the biggest thing. He's playing with a smile on his face. The level is good. Let's see how he gets on for the rest of the clay court swing. I'm very interested to see, fast forwarding to Roland Garros, what happens there. Because Sinner will be back. He would have played Rome. Djokovic, how's he going to look going forward? And I'm not really worried about anyone else, if I'm being honest. For Alcaraz, I don't really see anyone causing issues. Rude on clay, I don't see beating Alcaraz. Zverev on clay, I know he's beaten Alcaraz in the past at Roland Garros, but I just don't see it right now unless he suddenly finds some brilliant form. Musetti, I think, can beat Alcaraz on clay. He's done it before, did it at Umag in 2022. I mean, that wasn't only 3 years ago now, but still, it shows he's capable. Let's see. Let's see. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of Alcaraz's win. Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe and well, and we'll see you on the next video.